Dear Mr. President, I am sincere. My methods and things are based on true properties of physics. One of my biggest driving forces is the words of my president that says that he wants to do everything necessary to find a resolve and stop this thing. I truly believe that all my methods are based on real physical properties. I'm not fighting against the properties. I'm using them to help me get a solution. The BOP rig and the valve has a bent, damaged riser. This is bent and kinked, and this section of pipe is generally undamaged. First response, maybe not guaranteed 100% fixed, first response would be a shaft with bladders and steel plates holding the bladders, and this end tied down to some sort of counterweight so that when the pipe was pressurized, it wouldn't want to stand up and straighten out like a folded fire hose being pressurized. And these baffles would be inflated, this would hold the pipe in place and slowly inflate the baffles, watching this point, this damaged point, very carefully, bringing the pressure up so that we get to a point where we can stop most of it without blowing this apart. Contingency, that would be first response, and again having the BOP and the plunger in here. The problem with their containment dome, wrong size, wrong shape, wrong material, misapplied. There were several breaches, and they were attacking several breaches at a time, which doesn't make sense to me. Go back to the source, take care of the breach, and I would have done that, which they've now taken away by cutting that pipe off. I'll never be able to do that. During the time from day one that it takes about maybe a week to develop this item and get it tied down, you take a large containment dome that's shaped much higher of a peak, and the amassed buoyancy would create a head pressure to the point where the more oil that filled in the containment dome would increase the head pressure to the point where it would push the oil up the riser by itself and not even be able to continue to fill this, because it would reach the balance point between the buoyancy force and the force that it would take to fully push that up. The oil would never reach the bottom of the containment dome if the containment dome was big enough, and it would never leak out. It would always go up by itself. Calculating the difference between the heavy oil, unfortunately, because of the dispersants, might be a problem. So contingency and forethought says you either need a pump at the top of the dome, or you either need a pump at the top of the riser, and you need a camera and a view window so that you can see where the level of oil is. You want to pump faster to keep it from coming down and leaking out from underneath. You want to pump slower if the seawater rises up and you have less oil. So you want to hold a certain level with the pump. That is your backup contingency of control. After that, the containment dome could have been possibly 40 feet square if necessary, and with a very tall peak, like I said, but at all four corners, jack screws, very large jack screws. If this is 30 feet, then we would put a 50-foot jack screw with large feet, and once we got this over, we have that containment plug in the pipe. and we're containing now 100% of the oil, and know that this was developed simultaneously with the first plug, along with simultaneously developing a way to manipulate the bolts at the flange at the top of the bent riser. That would be down here. A way to manipulate those bolts and unbolt that to then re-bolt on a flange or some type of shut-off valve or something else. So all these things would be being developed simultaneously. And being able to do that and bolt something on would in fact give us the final solid solution. Contingency beyond that, if we couldn't get them to manipulate those bolts, and I know I could solve those problems as well, we end up with removing the BOP right off the ocean floor, and we're left with the bore, the well bore, and at that point, because of the jack screws, we could use the jack screws, raise that up, and work on that ring of bolts, and still contain the oil as we work. If for some reason I couldn't get them to do that, or get that to work somehow, or some whatever, we remove the entire BOP, we gush full force out of the earth, but still are able to contain it because of the large size of the containment dome and the pump. Then, from a ship, at the top, we drop and assemble 1,200 feet of pipe with centering fingers, and as many inflatable baffles many inflatable bladders as we possibly can put here. We assemble 1,200 feet of this pipe, and at 1,200 feet we put a valve, actually a diverter and a shutoff valve, and we mount a frame that will then go onto the ocean floor. We take the subs, direct the tip of this down that hole. The oil will vent through the center of the pipe, as well as venting around the sides of the pipe during insertion. We get this in to the well bore, 1,200 feet. This hits the ocean floor. We do this by continuing to assemble more pipe if necessary, to use that smaller pipe as a riser possibly, or a vent or something, so that we can seal the hole, still vent oil during the sealing of the hole, and have this portion of the hole ready to fill with concrete. We fill this hole with concrete, it's sealed, yet still not holding full pressure back from the well because we've vented it up the center pipe. The diverter and shutoff valve will be utilized for different things. That, you know, it's kind of a short video, and I want to just get the point across. So you see, I've gone through several levels of fixes, and to drive this 1,200 feet into the earth and be able to vent it at the same time and blow it out will ensure that we can hold it down, as well as weighting the frame so that the weight of the frame holds it down, and the baffles will hold it down in the hole, and the venting will keep it from having so much pressure it wants to push itself out of the hole until we get solid weight, full of concrete. That'll hold.